Okay, so as I was saying, that the human mind is divided into two categories. We have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. But before we look into that aspect of the human mind, we need to look into the word we call paradigm. Paradigm is spelled Paradigm. Now, a paradigm has to do with your habits. Generally we see it as our habit, our habitual behavior. That means your constant response to situations, your constant response to things that happens around you are what we know as habits. Basically, that means what you do constantly, what you do repeatedly. But most times when we speak of habits, people have used to thinking of the negative side of habits. So when you talk of habits, they are always about the negative habits. Or for instance, in a religious setting, talk of bad characters and the likes. That is what most people see as habits. But in a general sense, habit itself is not just about bad things. Habits can be positive and negative. But in a lame language, habits basically means what you do consistently. So that thing might be good or it might be bad. It might be good in the sense, it might be bad. That means moral in a moral sense, and some might be good things, not necessarily bad. Maybe eating, you can love to eat. It's not something that is bad. Maybe you like, for instance, someone who likes to drink maybe mineral. That may not be bad, but it becomes since it's something that the person does consistently, it becomes a habit. So anything you do consistently uh, becomes your habit. Now, if you using the word called paradigm now is not just about actions. It has to now do with your response to things. That means how you view things. So while the word habit seems to be more of acts, more of the things you do, the word paradigm has to do with what propels what you do. That means a state of mind, a state of being that determines what you actually do, that determines what becomes your habit. So, in other words, your habit and your paradigm are seen as synonymous. That means one leads to the other. How you see what your state of mind determines the actions you take oftentimes. That means how you have been predisposed to think is what determines what you do on on often, either on daily basis or whatsoever is something that you find yourself doing on a consistent basis. So now when we speak of the word paradigm, the word the state of your mind is not something that probably you are born with. Some persons you hear things like, oh, that's the way I am, or that's the way I think. Now the way you think is not a guarantee that that is how you were born, or the things you do are oftentimes not what you were born with. Some of the things we do are inherited, or they are learned. Let me use the word they are learned. That means if you see every child, every baby is born as pure, as holy as they can. But the moment they get into the world, they start growing in their environment. You see, they'll start adapting to the system and the culture of their environment. For instance, we are in Nigeria here. We have different states, different tribes in Nigeria, and each of these tribes, have has their culture. So we have the culture we practice here in our different, tribes. But understand this, that if you, let's say, someone who is maybe from the Yoruba, who practices the Yoruba culture, if that same individual was probably born, we are born in an Igbo setting, in an Igbo tribe, you see that person would adapt to that same culture. No, now even though the person is being born by Yoruba parents, but because he's born in a different environment, he was raised in a different environment. You see that the lifestyle will be formed by that environment. So that now becomes his thinking, his system of thinking becomes his paradigm. Likewise, for those of us, we are in Nigeria here. Because we are born in Nigeria, we live in the Nigerian cultural system. Now, if at all we were born in some other countries, we would have seen ourselves behaving in accordance to the culture of that country, because the environment itself is what determines our paradigm. That means how we see things, how we perceive things. So in general, your paradigm has to do with your perception of realities. That, and most time we need to understand that what we even see as truth are relative. For instance, you if you tell a Yoruba person that this and this is true, he might disbelieve it because in his culture they don't see that as true. If you go to another place and you say the same thing, maybe that believe that, they will see it as true. Let's take for example, um, in Nigeria here, there are some laws that are binding on Nigerians. Now, if you go to a different country, those laws will no longer bind on you because you are no longer in this vicinity or in this jurisdiction. You would want to adapt to the new culture of the new country that you find yourself. That is just how it is. That our lives, most times, what we see as being right or wrong, are dependent on what we have been trained to believe. So our belief systems most times are dependent on our environment. Now, why do we have to explain all this? It is because when we speak of self-awareness, we need there are several things we need to understand for us to even understand ourselves. Because the you think you are now is mostly dependent on what people have said about you, and not what you are per se. For instance, maybe you were in school and maybe you were getting bad grades, and because of the bad grades, you had thought you were not brilliant. You were thought you had, you had thought that you were not too good because someone else decided to give you a particular grade that probably that matches your academic qualification at that time. But that does not really tell that is how good you are, because there are other aspects that you can be so good at that no one else can be as good as you are. So what am I trying to say? That what you perceive of yourself now is mostly dependent on what people have said about you and what you have perceived about your environment. It is not that is whom you truly are. So for you to discover yourself, you need to understand the aspect of the environment having to form your perception of yourself. Most people today, they live with what we call the inferiority complex. That means they live with a kind of mindset that limits them. They disbelieve in their ability. They believe things, others are better than they are, and they believe they are not too well to do simply because of how the society has structured things. They feel, okay, we are the low class, we are poor, some people are in middle class, some people are rich, and all that. So with that kind of mindset, they live their lives in a poor state, all through because they have believed, or they have been made to believe, that they are poor. Not because they don't have the resources to be rich, but because they have been made to believe that they are poor. So your mindset is influenced by your environment, and your mindset now determines your responses to situations. So if you see, most people that don't grow, it is simply because there is something that pulls them back, which has to do with how they see themselves, how the paradigm. That even if they decide to take an action, there is always that pulling back, that no, you can't do this, you can't do this. And most times it is not that people don't gather knowledge, it's not that they don't gather information, but there is always that fear to implement the knowledge they've acquired, because there is they know the one the knowledge might not be maybe through studies, might be through an inspiration. An idea may come to their mind, and if they want to to work on those ideas, some for some persons, maybe because they were born in a poor background, because they don't really have the money, there is that mindset that would come to them, that thought that will make them think that they can't do it because they don't have the resources. And that's because they have been programmed to believe that if you don't have the resources to execute a particular task, you can't do that task. And the resources most people have in mind is the money. So when you ask some people today, why are you poor? They said, I don't have the money. Or why have you not been able to do this? They said, I don't have the money. But most times it is not the money itself that brings limitation. The actual limitation has to do with the mind. What do you perceive of yourself? So what have you programmed in your mind that has been bringing limitation, that if even though You've had several ideas, several things that you wish to do. You find yourself pulling back because you feel you can't do it. Because there is something making you to feel that you can't do it. And it might be that maybe you've tried several times and you failed. And the moment you want to try again, that mind would come to you because it is now an environmental thing. It is something that has been programmed in your mind. You tried it first time, it didn't work out. You tried the second time, it didn't work out. You tried it the third time, it didn't work out. In fact, some might even try it up to maybe 10 times and it didn't work out. Trying it the 11th time is always very challenging because there is that mind that will come to you, or that, that flashback of the fact that, oh, I have tried this several times and it didn't work out. That is what we talk about when we speak of paradigm. And you see, because that is the state of your mind, it now affects your actions. If you are supposed to take an action to implement those ideas, you would find yourself withdrawing your back because there was a voice that came to you to make you think you can't accomplish what you had in mind to accomplish. So in understanding all this is where the issue of the minds come into play. That means the types of mind, because the paradigm does not just form, it forms through our minds, through the information we gather, through the things we have been hearing over the years. So you see a child who probably grew up in the ghetto. You see that child behaving that way, not because he is being taught, but because there is an environmental influence that has propelled the system in this child to make that system to act in accordance to what he has been taught over the years. Likewise, if you see a child who is born into a maybe a calm environment, a rich environment, you see that this child would act in accordance to that system. So you need to understand the place of having to alter the things you think about yourself and how you view life in general, because understanding the principles of paradigm is very important, and this helps you to know how to gather the right information. You'll be wondering, why is it that with all the knowledge I've gathered, maybe with all the classes I've attended, yet I'm not seeing any results? The reason is not far-fetched from your state of mind. What do you believe about yourself? Each time you want to take an action, is there that voice that comes to you to make you feel, I can't do this thing? I know I'm not good enough. I don't have the skills. I don't have the qualifications and all that. There is always that mind that will want to fight against you taking positive steps in life. So you need to work against that. So now, understanding that this is not, most times in religion, because at times, sorry, each time I use the word religion, I'm a Christian and I so much believe in the person of Christ, because there are several revelations I have received, and I've written several books on faith, and they are authoritative books on faith. So when I speak of religion, I'm not talking of true righteousness, true understanding of the gospel in Christ. I'm talking of the religion that does not have anything to do with we understanding God, because most of the things people practice today, they call it for some, some that claim to be Christians and all that, is just on the ground of, okay, let's just go to church, not because they really understand the principles of Christianity. Now, so if I use the word religion, understand the perspective I'm trying to speak from. That I'm speaking from the perspective of maybe people who don't really understand the purpose and the essence of their faith. So when we speak of this, you see that in religion today, most times there is always this focus on, oh, maybe generational powers, ancestral powers, powers are from your father's house are the ones causing this and all that. And you see that people who don't even believe in all these things, they are the ones making progress in the society the more. Why? Because some persons sitting somewhere are just preying on the ignorance of people. That all you need to do is to understand life from the perspective of God, so that you can effect changes around you. But most people, they don't want, they don't want to learn, they don't want to grow, they don't want to have an understanding mind. They just want, okay, let things just happen overnight, miracles should just happen overnight. Yes, we believe in miracles and all that, but you need to understand the principles of miracles for all these things to happen. Now, you see, the problem of most people today, most of them are not all spiritual. When I mean all spiritual, it's not that maybe there's one foundational cause, foundational powers. It is just because of, imagine someone that is born in a poor environment, who has been taught to think poorly all his life. Then this person now grows old and wants to become rich all of a sudden. If an idea comes to him that, oh, let me implement this, there is always that limiting force, that mindset that would make him to think, no, I can't do this. And the more this person keeps thinking that way, he will never get a result because his mindset is pulling him back. But if this same individual goes to maybe one kind of false preacher also, the next thing, the conclusion will be, oh, there is power from your father's house that is tormenting you. And you see, year in, year out, they keep conducting deliverance for the same person without a solution. Why? Because the real problem has not been solved, which has to do with how you have been perceiving yourself. You see that children who think highly of themselves, who are so proud of their looks and all that, they kind of receive more attraction from the society compared to someone who is always moody, who is always depressed, who is always dejected. The results they would get will be quite different. Now, let's take you for example. See, let's say you have a baby before you. One is just frowning, its face. The other one is kind of smiling and playing another. You see, you will be more predisposed to move towards the one that is smiling, to just to play along. And though, as someone with a sympathetic mind, you want to know the reason for the other baby's moodiness. But the one that will arouse your interest the most and would kind of excite you, bring up, let me put it this way, the one that would bring an excitement in your mind will be that is kind of lively and all that. But the other one that is moody, you want to show a sympathetic spirit, to see how you can help this child, to know what he or she is even going through at that moment. So you see that the state of mind determines the actions we take most times. And all these things are dependent on the environment we grew up in. So you see a child who grew up in a hostile environment. When this child grows up, if that is not dealt with, there is always that tendency of continuing that difficult system in his or her life. So what we do as individuals is to work on how we perceive ourselves, how we view things, what do we believe as of our abilities. Now, understanding this perspective that we are all created in the image of of the creator of all things, the image of God. And when you understand this aspect that yes, we are all created in the image of God, I don't know if some persons have even thought of this, that I being created in the image of God. That means I have so much power that I can utilize this power to effect changes in my life. But because some persons don't understand this, they keep lamenting, oh, things are not working, things are difficult, things are bad, things are hard, because they don't understand the power that they possess. So if you understand the fact that yes, I am in the image of God and I have ability to do whatsoever I can do. And if you look at it from the scriptural perspective, Jesus says something. He says, all things are possible to him that believes. Now, what is that belief about? The belief has to do with the confidence you have, the faith you have in God. But just having faith in God is not just enough, but you must understand the fact that yes, God has given you the ability to do several things on earth, that depending on his wisdom, will help you to navigate through the affairs of the earth. The issue is if we fail to depend on God's wisdom and feel, oh, it is our own power, it is our own ability. That's where the issue is. But in the aspect of the fact that God has given us the ability to do several things on earth, shows us, and it is more like a sign of his love for us. But we need to discover all this, to believe so much in that power, so that we will stop limiting ourselves by maybe what we have been trained to believe in our environment. Because there are several persons on earth today whose lives have been limited based on the environment they grew up in. Yes, we know I can't say we can blame God on this. That several of us we find ourselves in environments we if we were given opportunity to to make our choices before we were born into this world, I believe many of us will not choose where we were born. Sincerely speaking, even though we say okay, yes, for parental love, we would still love to be born by our parents, but if you have to be frank with yourself, the kind of environment you were born in, yes, you were born by those parents, but the environment itself might be where you will never want to come from again. that you say, oh no, I want to be from this part of the world. I want to be from this part of the world. Because you have come to that point of, yes, I can make choices, but when you are born, you never had a chance to make the choice. But irrespective of that, we can always make choices as we grow in life, irrespective of the fact that, yes, when we are growing up, the kind of environment we lived in, you know formed the basis of our beliefs, formed what we think about ourselves, formed how we perceive life. Now we have grown to the point where we can make choices. What are the choices what choices are you making at this moment? How are you seeing yourself? The environment you grew up in might have made you to see yourself as being inferior, might have made you to see yourself as, as a non-entity, or people from your background, they can't do well, they've not been going above this level. You can make the change, you can change the narrative by having a deeper understanding of the fact that it is what you perceive of yourself that determines the productivity of your life. That means your perception, the evaluation of yourself by yourself is what determines how your life grows. So if you see yourself as a nobody, your life will definitely be that of a nobody. But if you see yourself as someone who is great and you are gathering information based on that, you will see yourself moving great in life. And this all falls down on the aspect of our minds, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Now, the conscious mind is the aspect of your mind that you use to gather information. As I'm teaching you now, you're gathering it in in your conscious mind, because you can relate with it. You can try to compare it with some things you've heard before. You can, okay, there are some you can reject, there are some you can accept. I don't believe this, I don't believe that. Why is he saying this? Why is he saying that? You might not believe some, and that is the function of your conscious mind, that you can reason, you can compare information, you can compare some new ideas from, with the ones you have been hearing before. Now you can make comparison. That is where the conscious mind is. But we have what we call the subconscious mind, which has to do with what forms our habits. And the subconscious mind is built over the years based on what you have been feeding your conscious mind with. So if you have been feeding your conscious mind, if you have been listening to things that are positive, watching things that are positive, thinking positively, you see yourself gathering information based on that positive mindset. And when the time comes for you to act, to respond to situations, you will respond based on what you have gathered in your mind. That means in your subconscious mind. So your actions automatically moves in alignment with the information you have gathered in your conscious mind. So in your subconscious mind, that becomes the habitual part of your personality. Now, understanding this, so you see that, when as I explained before, that your perception, what you see about yourself, what you allow to limit you from within, is what determines the actions you take. Now, with that being fully explained, it is good to understand that we can actually change this aspect of our being, or of the subconscious mind, since our actions are moved or are prepared by the subconscious mind. And we know that the subconscious mind does not operate on its own, except it is being fed from the conscious mind. That means the kind of information you gather, the kind of things you listen to. If you are the kind of person, maybe you listen to things that are too negative all the time, you see yourself thinking in that way, that even if a good news come to you, you would always want to disbelieve it, because there is the mind that has come to you, that, oh, nobody can ever get to this point. Now I will give an instance so you understand, what I'm trying to explain. But before then, I want to be sure we can all hear me. If you can hear me, let me see your favorite emoji. I'm not getting a response. If you can hear me, let me see your favorite emoji in the group. All right. So, as I was explaining, so I wanted to give an instance of um this issue of paradigm, how you have been made to perceive things that is kind of affecting your life. That you need to work at changing that aspect, the thing kind of things you feed your subconscious mind with, to change the entirety of your life. Now, there was a time I I was with a guy one day, and he was speaking. He was saying something about someone he knew at the point in time that was about some years ago though. It should be about maybe 3 4 years or 5 though. Now he was saying something about the fact that um he made a statement basically. He, I think he went to work for someone, and he saw the cars and the likes of this person. And this individual was a young person, and he just concluded that no, this person cannot get this kind of money except he is into fraud. That means he's a Yahoo boy. That's why he has this kind of then or he was like, if it's not that, he's into ritual, that he has done ritual. I was trying to convince him to make him see that it is not everyone that is rich that actually involves in all these things you are mentioning. He said, no, it can't be possible that there's no way you can be so stinkingly rich without being a ritualist or being a fraudster. So he was so emphatic about this. He had made up his mind about that. So I had to try to explain to him that if you have this kind of mindset, there's no way you can ever be rich because one, you are afraid to do what they are doing, and because you believe these things are wrong. So the more you believe that it is until you do this that you can be rich, that means you can never be rich because there is a mindset that has been programmed in you. And I tried my possible best to see how I can talk him out of that, but it wasn't going through. It wasn't yielding any result. So I just had to leave him at that moment. Now what am I trying to say? That you know such a person has concluded in his life that no, you can never be rich except, or should I use this way, you can never be extremely rich except your hands are unclean, and which is a wrong assumption to believe that everyone is rich is doing one negative thing or the other. So we need to understand all this. So, and that is because his mind has been programmed to think that way, that it will take some sort of miracle for him to change that kind of mindset. And the more he keeps with that mindset, the less he finds himself to be productive. Because he would always believe that he cannot make progress except he does something that is wrong. And because he believes that, or because he has decided not to do what is wrong, he will never succeed because his mindset has been made to believe that until you do what is wrong, that is when you can be rich. And it is not so. It is not true. So we need to understand this, that what you have been perceiving of yourself, what you have been seeing, how you have been seeing situations are mostly dependent on what you have been trained to believe over the years. If you believe one thing about religion, that is what it will be. For instance, if you look at people who are born in maybe in an Arabic society that practices Islam, you see that child, it is not because that is God's will. No, it is because this child, we come to that point where we make choices. And because this child has been fed with that kind of information over the years, it becomes his own reality. The same thing with a child who is born into a Jewish environment. The more this child grows in that, he adapts to the culture of that. If that same child was to be born in an Islamic environment, the child would also adapt to that culture, because our lives mostly are, or most times rather, are dependent on the environment we find ourselves, and we've come to believe to be true in our environment. Those things might not be true. And I said this before, that truth is relative. That means what is true in one setting might be false in another setting. For instance, you can pick, a letter, maybe, alphabet W. If it's, as it's supposed to be, it is W. But if you turn it upside down, or not even turn it upside down, someone that is viewing it from the other end will see it as probably, an M, because there are different perspectives of same thing, same event, same item, but the perspective differs. So you need to understand this, that for you to effect changes in your life, you need to change your perspective. So your perspective must first be altered for you to have a change. If the perspective is negative, you must learn to work on yourself to think positively, so you can start seeing positive results. So the result you get in life, are most times dependent on how you see yourself and how you view yourself, not just on the external knowledge. The external knowledge is good, but it should it should relate with the internal knowledge that you have if you want a better result. So you see several persons who are gathering external knowledge because internal knowledge, the knowledge of self, the knowledge of how to think positively, the knowledge of how to see things differently has not been imbibed. And because of that, you see that even with the external knowledge, there is little or even no results at the end. So you need to understand this as a person that you know, working to alter your conscious. We will look into this in details tomorrow, but that in terms of the conscious and the subconscious mind. So we'll look into it in details tomorrow. But we just needed to introduce that aspect of the two categories of mind, the conscious and the subconscious mind. So today's focus was on the issue on the issue of paradigm. That means what you have believed to be true, what you have been allowing to bring limitation to you. And most times, fear itself are for things that don't even exist. Things that don't even exist. So the more you become fearful of those things, the more those things look so magnified in your mind. Not because they are actually big, but because you have made your mind to think that this thing is too big for me to handle. So you need to understand that aspect of life, that how you have been relating to things, you know, is so much dependent on what you have studied over the years, what you have gathered over the years, the influence you have allowed into your mind over the years. That's why the scripture says, it says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Guard your heart with all diligence. So, what are the things, the information you feed into your mind? You need to work on that aspect if you want a change, so that every other knowledge you are gathering will become positive, will become productive, because yes, I have mastered the skill, providing competence in what I do. So have that in mind. Have it in mind that you are working on altering your paradigm. What you have, most times, let me just be frank with you guys now. The reason you are not taking the exercises as you should, or you have not been taking it as you should, is very simple, because it is something you have not been used to. Now, this is a perfect example of paradigm. It is something you have not been used to, and there is something you were used to, or you are used to doing before now. And that is where the issue of paradigm comes in. So, because there is something new that you are supposed to do that is beneficial to you, but because there is something old that you have been doing that seems to be habit for you, it is now seeming difficult for you to make an adjustment, because there is something that has been programmed in your mind to say, okay, by this time I will do this, by this time I will do this and this, and this is a new thing that you are trying to introduce. Though it will take time for you to, but you need to be decisive as if this is to be introduced or not. So the issue of paradigm is good and is bad in some sense, in the sense that the good aspect is that if you can develop a good habit, fine and good, because you can use it to climb to a higher level. But in the negative side, if you can't master the art of altering your paradigm, if you have been practicing a negative paradigm, it kind of affects you. It will affect you as a person, and in so doing you might not find yourself making progress, because there is kind of a limiting factor in your mind that makes you think, oh, I can't do this, I can't accomplish this, I can't earn this much, I can't. No, you need to cancel that idea of I can't from your mind if you want a positive result. So now, before we proceed, hello, can we, if you can hear me, let me serve it emoji. All right. So, learn to work on your paradigm. How have you been seeing yourself? You see that if you want to take an action today, it is so much dependent on, oh, what you have believed before. I can't do this, because there is something that is programmed in your mind. Even if that thing maybe was it's not actually wrong, but because there is a program in your mind that makes you think that is wrong, you will not find yourself doing what you are supposed to do. Or now let me take it away from that part. Let me bring it back to our career as individuals. There might be an idea that has come to you that you want to venture into. And because there is a paradigm, there is a program in your mind that makes you feel, oh, I don't have the qualification, then you will not be able to get it because you have disqualified yourself from your mindset. So you need to understand this. So in respect of your career, as I said, you might want to take certain steps, make certain decisions. Then the voice will come to you, oh, you can't do this, you don't have the qualification, you don't have the standard. And when you keep thinking of that negative side, there's no way you can see a result in what you do. So the change in the result of what you do is dependent on how you perceive the growth, how you perceive yourself, how you see yourself as of high value, and how you don't allow, if there is a need to take an action, because there and probably and that action is positive, you will see some kind of limiting voices telling you, oh, are you sure you can do this, are you sure you can do that, or who has ever done this before? All those kind of mindset, all those kind of voices would come to you. But you need to understand how to set a boundary to allow only positive things to come to your mind. Just as the scripture says, it says, guard your heart with all diligence. It says, guard it with all diligence. That's to tell you how serious it is that we will learn to filter the information that comes to us. If they are negative, making us to think negative things, or making us to think, oh, we can't grow and all that, cut them off. But if there are things that are positive, so you now need to focus on things that are positive, so you can get positive results in your life. So that will be all for today. If you have any question, you can indicate in the group now. So I guess the network is a bit bad at some end, no, maybe with some of our students. So, but hopefully they will join. Though we are rounding off now. So if you have any question, I think it's only Grace Slider is online. So if you have any question, kindly indicate. And if you have no question, simply type no question.